Hi everyone, this is Danny Class. One of the interesting things about learning the guitar is discovering different chord voicings. And when we do that, we're able to kind of explore different musical ideas without having to change the chord. And so that's the focus of today's lesson, looking at different chord voicings, playing different chord voicings, and again, in so doing, trying to generate some new musical ideas with a kind of less is more approach, using just the notes of the chord. Okay, so then the question would be, which chord? Well, there's thousands of chords, and there's probably not thousands of voicings, but there's definitely different kinds of voicings. So I thought we would just use a somewhat complicated chord with 4 notes, an A major 7 chord. And we'll learn the different voicings up and down the fretboard, and then we'll learn about how to kind of use it in a musical way. The idea here is that a lot of us are taught, and not wrongly, that a good way to learn to generate music is through diatonic harmony or modal harmony, chord progressions, which is great, but there's another way to kind of use the instrument, which is just focus on one chord, different voicings, and then with that find a different way to produce musical ideas, different melodies, and different harmonies. Okay, so let's start by going through the different chord voicings that we'll be using for A major 7. Okay, so here's the first one down here. Here's the next one. Here is the next one. Here is the next one. And here is the last one I'm using. This one is simply 12 frets added to that very first one. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I've mentioned this in another video on another topic, but anytime you play anything on the guitar, if you have room on your fretboard, add 12 to all the notes and you can play the same thing again. It's just an octave higher, and that might also kind of generate some different musical ideas. Okay, so what to do with these chord voicings? Well, there's different ways we can kind of approach this. I guess I would say we can kind of think of this as a lesson. And so one thing I would recommend, whatever chord voicing you're using, but again, we're using A major 7, to first of all just know them, without having to think. And play them again and again and again, which might not sound very musical or might not be interesting, but it'll kind of take the cognitive work out. You won't have to sort of memorize and think about where they are because you already know them. Okay. Now, if that seems sort of, too much, or, not sort of something that seems appealing to you because that's many chords to memorize, even 2 will do it. So if you are doing this lesson, you think, well, I just want to do the first 2 voicings that he's talking about. Just these 2, even with just those 2, you can get ideas from. Okay, so that's the first tip, would just be to know the chord voicings. The next tip, that's the most important, by the way, because again, you don't have to think about it. So the next tip would be then to kind of play them, and then at some point kind of, I almost feel like this is a topic for another video, but kind of let go and just see what your fingers want to do. Maybe first on your right hand, maybe play them arpeggio, see if you can kind of generate a kind of musical idea out of them. I mean, I'm kind of playing jazz, but if you're playing a different style, that could also work. I mean, there's not a lot of, it's kind of an intuitive process at this point, I think, to kind of see what your hands want to do. Okay, now some other ways to kind of extend this. If you know the notes, and in this case the notes are A, C sharp, E, and G sharp, you can kind of mix and match arpeggios and the chord, and I'll give you an example. doing now is just really kind of understanding, well, the chord is just those notes. So anywhere I can kind of play those notes in the fretboard, then it'll kind of work. Now I did a wrong note there on purpose. That's an F sharp. If you find yourself that you hit a wrong note, this is something I've talked about before, just keep going, you know. Just say, okay, well, that wasn't the note I want to do. I want to restrict myself, in this case, to these 4 notes. And if you hit the wrong note, then just go back to whatever the nearest note was. In this case, this F sharp, the nearest note was an A. So see what that does for you. You know, it might feel a little different than what you're used to when it comes to music, because if you're used to, you know, playing just kind of a typical chord progression, whatever it might be, this is going to be very different. It's got kind of an ambient feel. It doesn't have to, I guess, but it sort of does here. But this world of chordal harmony can be very interesting because it can kind of, you know, open up and sort of stretch the chord, and you're getting a lot from a little. I mean, you could also do this with triads. Again, this chord has 4 notes, but if you're doing just, you know, A major, I mean, to me, it's not quite as fruitful of an exercise because you don't have as many notes, but you might feel differently. You might think, okay, well, those notes A, E, and C are all over. If I can remember right. A, E, C sharp. Etc., etc. So hopefully you found that useful. This can be useful for any chords that you might use as a way to practice, but also as a way to generate new musical ideas. So thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.